The chamber was massive, built to hold representatives from 200 different species. Crystal walls curved upward into a dome that showed the stars beyond, and gravity platforms kept each delegate floating at their preferred height. Daniel Carter stood on the human platform, his hands clasped behind his back, watching the council members whisper to each other in dozens of languages. He knew what was coming. He had known for 6 months. Ambassador Krellnax rose from his platform. The reptilian's scales gleamed under the chamber lights, blue and green patterns shifting as he moved. As council speaker, his word carried weight across the galaxy. Every eye turned toward him. "This emergency session begins now," Krellnax said. His voice echoed through the translation devices everyone wore. "We gather to address the human problem." Daniel did not react. Beside him, Commander Lisa Martin tensed, her hand moving unconsciously toward where her sidearm would normally rest. But weapons were forbidden in the council chamber. She looked at Daniel, waiting for a signal. He gave her a small shake of his head. "Not yet." "The evidence is clear," Krellnax continued. He gestured, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. "Humanity has expanded beyond their authorized borders. They have built installations in protected space. They have refused to share their technology with the galactic community. They have violated 17 different treaties. The displays showed human ships, human stations, human colonies. Some of the images were real. Many were altered. Daniel recognized the fabrications immediately. His intelligence people had warned him about this. High Chancellor Voth clicked forward on his insectoid legs, his compound eyes reflecting the holographic light. "We have been patient with Earth," he said. "We welcomed them to the galactic community only 40 years ago. We taught them our ways. We offered them protection. And how do they repay us? With arrogance and defiance." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Daniel counted the speakers. 60% of them had been carefully prepared for this moment, fed lies and half-truths by Krellnax and his allies. 30% were uncertain, wanting to believe but hesitant to commit. Only 10% knew the truth, and they stayed silent, afraid to speak against the majority. "Ambassador Carter," Krellnax said, turning his gaze fully on the human. "You stand accused of leading your species into illegal expansion and aggressive posturing. What defense do you offer?" Daniel stepped forward to the edge of his platform. He looked around the chamber slowly, meeting as many eyes as he could. Some looked away. Others glared back with hostility. "We built homes," Daniel said simply. "We grew food. We established research stations. We did what every species does. We survived and expanded within the rules given to us." "You exceeded your authorized zones," Voth insisted. "Those zones were drawn up 40 years ago when we had 3 colony worlds," Daniel replied. "Our population has grown. We requested expansion of our territory 7 times through proper channels. 7 times we were denied without explanation. So we expanded into unclaimed space, as is our right under the foundational charter that created this council. Unclaimed space that we were reserving for other purposes," Krellnax said, his tone sharp. "Then it should have been claimed," Daniel said. "Empty space is not property. That is council law, your own law." The reptilian's scales darkened with anger. "You dare quote our own laws to us? You, whose species has been civilized for barely a century while our cultures span millennia?" Daniel smiled slightly. It was a cold smile, the kind that did not reach the eyes. "I quote the laws because I respect them. I wonder if the same can be said for everyone in this chamber." The murmurs grew louder. Some council members looked shocked at the accusation. Others looked guilty. Krellnax slammed his hand down on his platform's control panel. "Enough of this theater. The council has reached a decision. Earth will submit to full inspection of all military assets, all technology, and all territorial claims. You will surrender control of your armed forces to Council oversight. You will open your worlds to our administrators. You have 48 hours to comply. Lisa leaned close to Daniel. Sir, this is insane. They are demanding our surrender. I know, Daniel whispered back. And if we refuse? Daniel called out to the chamber. Krelnax's expression showed his teeth. For his species, it was a gesture of dominance and threat. Then the Council will take collective action. We will enforce compliance. We will bring your species to heel, Ambassador Carter, whether you cooperate or not. The chamber fell silent. This was it. The moment that would define everything. High Chancellor Voth spoke the formal words. By majority vote of the Galactic Council, we hereby declare that humanity has violated galactic law. By majority vote, we authorize military action to enforce compliance. Humanity has 48 hours to surrender. If they refuse, a state of war will exist between Earth and the Council. Daniel felt Lisa's hand on his arm. She was shaking, not with fear, but with rage. Around them, the few friendly species they had cultivated looked sad. The neutral ones looked worried. The hostile ones looked pleased. Daniel reached into his jacket pocket. Several security drones moved closer, scanning for weapons. He pulled out a small communication device and set it on his platform where everyone could see it. Is that your answer? Krelnax asked. You call for help? There is no one to help you. Human, you are alone. No, Daniel said quietly. He looked at the reptilian and his smile widened. This is not a call for help. He leaned toward the nearest council member, a mammalian delegate from a species that had remained neutral. His voice was low, but his words carried through the translation devices. We were waiting, Daniel said. The delegate looked confused. Waiting for what? Daniel did not answer. Instead, he activated his communication device and spoke clearly. Authorization code, Delta 7 Sierra. Protocol Nightfall is authorized. Repeat, Nightfall is authorized. The device beeped twice in confirmation. Somewhere far away, on Earth and across human space, systems that had been dormant for decades began to wake up. What did you just do? Krelnax demanded. Daniel picked up the device and returned it to his pocket. I accepted your declaration of war. You accepted it? Voth clicked forward. You fool! You will be crushed. Your worlds will burn. Your people will beg for mercy. Perhaps, Daniel said. He gestured to Lisa, and they both stepped back from their platform's edge. Or perhaps you should have asked yourselves one important question before you did this. What question? Krelnax asked. Daniel began walking toward the exit. His voice carried across the silent chamber. Why was Earth so quiet for the past 20 years? Why did we not fight your restrictions? Why did we accept your boundaries without complaint? Why did we seem so peaceful? He stopped at the chamber door and looked back. Every delegate was watching him. You should have wondered what we were doing with all that time, Daniel said. You should have asked what we were building, what we were planning, what we were preparing for. The door opened and he walked through it. Lisa followed, and behind them, the council chamber erupted in confused voices. In orbit around Earth, in asteroid fields scattered across human space, in the General Eric Stone stood in Earth Defense Command, 3 kilometers below the Rocky Mountains. Around him, hundreds of officers worked at their stations, their faces lit by the glow of tactical displays. Above them, massive screens showed the entire solar system and beyond, each human installation marked with a blue dot. There were far more blue dots than anyone outside this room knew about. Nightfall authorization confirmed, a communications officer called out. All stations responding. We are green across the board. Eric nodded. He had been waiting for this day for 20 years. Not hoping for it, waiting for it. There was a difference. Begin Phase 1, he ordered. Bring everything online. Across human space, the awakening began. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, what looked like a simple mining station split down the middle. The two halves pulled apart, and from within, a shipyard emerged. Massive construction berths stretched out, each one holding a warship that had been built in absolute secrecy. Lights flickered on. Reactors hummed to life. Crews who had been training in simulation for years boarded their vessels for real. Captain Michelle Grant stepped onto the bridge of the EDS Valiant. She had served in the merchant fleet for 15 years, a cover identity that let her travel the galaxy without suspicion. But her real training had been military. Her real purpose had been to wait for this moment. "Status report," she said, settling into the command chair. "Reactor at full power," her chief engineer reported. "Weapons systems online. Shields charging. All stations report ready." Michelle looked at the view screen. Around her ship, 53 others were coming to life. The Valiant was a heavy cruiser, twice the size of anything the Council thought humans could build. Her sister ships ranged from fast attack corvettes to massive battleships. Together, they formed Battle Group 7, one of 12 such groups hidden throughout human territory. "Send to all ships," Michelle ordered. "Welcome to the real Navy. Let's show the galaxy what Earth built while they were not paying attention." On Earth, Ryan Pierce sat in his office in Geneva, watching data streams flow across multiple screens. As intelligence director, he had spent 23 years building a network that infiltrated every major council species. His people were everywhere: diplomats, traders, scientists, even janitors and maintenance workers, all of them feeding information back to Earth. He opened a secure channel to General Stone. "Sir, Council military is mobilizing. They are gathering a fleet at the Epsilon staging area, about 200 light-years from our nearest outpost." "How many ships?" Eric asked. "Initial count shows 800 warships. They are pulling vessels from defense fleets across Council space. They are serious about this." "Let them come," Eric said. "We knew they would." "What else?" Ryan smiled. "Our friends in the Council are reporting panic. 42 species have contacted us through back channels in the last hour. They want to know if we are really going to fight. They want to know if we can win." "What did you tell them?" "I told them to watch and learn." The truth was, Earth had been preparing since the day they joined the galactic community. The Council had welcomed humanity with open arms, offered them technology and guidance. But Daniel Carter, even then just a junior diplomat, had seen the pattern. Every young species that joined the Council eventually lost their independence. Some quickly, some slowly, but it always happened. The Council spoke of cooperation, but they practiced domination. They shared technology, but only old technology, keeping the best for themselves. They offered protection, but only in exchange for loyalty and submission. They talked about equality, but the older species always ruled over the younger ones. Daniel had reported his concerns to Earth's government. Most had dismissed him, but a few had listened. They had authorized a secret program. While Earth publicly cooperated with the Council, privately they began preparing for the day when cooperation would not be enough. They built shipyards in places no one would look. They trained crews in secret. They developed weapons that used principles the Council did not share with them, forcing human scientists to innovate beyond what was given. They placed intelligence agents throughout Council space. And they waited. Now, 20 years of preparation was about to be tested. "General, the Council fleet is moving," a tactical officer reported. "They are heading toward our border systems. Estimated arrival in 72 hours. Eric pulled up a star map. The Council fleet was massive, but it was also predictable. They would approach through the standard transit lanes, following doctrine that had not changed in centuries. They would expect to face resistance at the border and punch through with overwhelming force. "Contact Captain Grant," Eric ordered. Tell her to take Battle Group 7 to intercept. She has authorization to engage on her terms. The message reached Michelle within seconds. She studied the tactical plot, calculating vectors and timing. The Council fleet outnumbered her group 4-1. By traditional thinking, that meant she should avoid engagement and wait for reinforcements. But humans did not fight by traditional thinking. Navigation! Plot a course to the Theta corridor, she ordered. We will meet them there. Helm! Prepare for combat burn. All ships. Battle formation Delta. Her tactical officer looked worried. Captain, the Theta corridor is a natural choke point. If they catch us there, we will be trapped. That is the idea, Michelle said. We will be trapped, and so will they. Difference is, we know how to fight in close quarters. They do not. The Valiant and her escorts jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving the safety of human space behind. Back in the council chambers, Ambassador Krelnax watched the tactical reports with satisfaction. His fleet was moving. Earth's pathetic colonies would fall quickly. The humans would learn their place. They are sending ships to meet us, his military advisor reported. Only 50 vessels. Krelnax laughed. 50 against 800? They are either brave or stupid. Should we adjust our approach? No. We proceed as planned. Let them come. Let them see the might of the Council. It will make their surrender more complete. But on the other side of the galaxy, in meeting rooms and private chambers, other conversations were happening. Species that had been conquered by the Council whispered to each other. Species that feared the Council's power watched to see what would happen. And several species that had been secretly working with Earth for years made their preparations. High Chancellor Voth met with his inner circle. Unlike Krelnax, the insectoid leader was troubled. Something is wrong, he said. The humans are too confident. Carter's behavior was not that of a defeated species. They are bluffing, one of his advisors said. What else can they do? I do not know, and that concerns me. We have intelligence reports on human military capability. They should have perhaps 200 warships at most. Where did they hide construction of a fleet large enough to challenge us? Perhaps they did not. Perhaps this is desperation. Voth's mandibles clicked in thought. Perhaps. But I remember something about human history. They have a saying, speak softly and carry a big stick. What if we have been hearing them speak softly for 20 years? What if they have been building a very big stick? His advisors did not have an answer. In the Theta corridor, Captain Michelle Grant brought her fleet out of faster-than-light travel exactly where she wanted to be. The corridor was a region of space where gravitational eddies from nearby binary stars created navigation hazards. Most fleets avoided it. Council doctrine specifically recommended against fighting there. Deploy the sensor drones, Michelle ordered. I want to know the moment they arrive. Weapons, arm all missile batteries, shields to maximum. All ships, maintain formation and wait for my signal. Her crew worked efficiently. They had trained for this. They had prepared for this. Now they would prove that Earth's patience had purpose. 72 hours later, the Council fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Theta corridor. Admiral Zethkor, commanding from his flagship Dominion, immediately saw the human ships waiting. Only 50 vessels, he said. They are fools. All ships, attack formation. We will destroy them quickly and move on. His fleet began its approach. 800 warships against 50. The numbers should have made the outcome certain. But numbers were not everything. Michelle watched the Council fleet spread out, exactly as she predicted. They were using a standard envelopment formation, trying to surround her smaller force. It was textbook tactics. It was also predictable. Wait for it, she said quietly. Let them commit. The first missiles struck before Admiral Zethkor fully understood what was happening. His shields absorbed the impacts, but the explosions were stronger than expected. Alarms began sounding across his bridge. Evasive maneuvers, he ordered. "All ships, return fire." The Council fleet began shooting back, their plasma cannons and particle beams lighting up space. But the human ships were already moving, sliding through the gravitational currents of the Theta Corridor like they belonged there. Every time a Council ship tried to lock weapons, its target shifted position using gravitational assists that made prediction impossible. On the bridge of the EDS Valiant, Lieutenant Kevin Brooks worked his tactical console with practiced efficiency. He had spent 5 years studying Council weapons technology, learning every detail of how their systems worked. Now he put that knowledge to use. "Enemy missiles incoming, bearing 270, he reported. "Time to impact, 40 seconds. "Point defense active," Captain Michelle Grant said calmly. The Valiant's automated defense grid came online. Unlike Council point defense systems that relied on energy weapons, the human system used a combination of lasers, kinetic interceptors, and electronic warfare. As the Council missiles closed in, the Valiant's computers analyzed each one, identified weaknesses, and assigned countermeasures. 97 missiles targeted the Valiant. 94 were destroyed before reaching the ship. The remaining 3 struck shields that had been angled to deflect maximum energy. The Valiant shook, but held firm. "Minimal damage," Kevin reported. "Shields at 86%. "Return fire," Michelle ordered. "Target their flagship. Let's get their commander's attention." The Valiant launched a spread of its own missiles. These were not standard weapons. Each missile had a limited artificial intelligence that could adapt to defensive measures. When the Council ships tried to shoot them down, the missiles split into multiple warheads, each one taking a different evasion path. When the Council ships activated their shields to maximum, the missiles targeted weak points where shield generators created small gaps. Admiral Zethkor watched in disbelief as 3 missiles penetrated his flagship's defenses and detonated against the hull. The explosions tore through armor that was supposed to withstand anything short of a direct hit from a capital ship weapon. "Damage report," he demanded. "Deck 7 breached. Casualties in sections 12 through 15. Shield generator 3 is offline." "How did they get through our defenses?" His tactical officer had no answer. The truth was that human weapons were designed specifically to counter Council technology. 20 years of intelligence gathering had given Earth detailed information on every Council ship class, every weapon system, every defensive measure. Human engineers had then built weapons to exploit every weakness. The Council, meanwhile, knew almost nothing about human capabilities. They had seen Earth's merchant ships and a few patrol craft. They had no idea what the real military could do. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human flagship," Zethkor ordered. "I want that vessel destroyed." 150 Council warships turned their weapons toward the Valiant. The amount of firepower being directed at a single target was enough to vaporize a small moon. Michelle saw it coming. "Helm, evasive pattern echo. All escorts. Cover formation." The Valiant dove toward one of the gravitational eddies, using it to slingshot in an unexpected direction. The Council ships fired where she had been, their shots missing as she accelerated away at an angle they had not predicted. Her escort ships moved into position, their own point defense systems intercepting missiles meant for the flagship. But Michelle was not just running. As the Valiant maneuvered, she was setting up her next attack. The Council ships were focused on her, which meant they were not watching the rest of her fleet. "Signal to all ships," she said. "Execute Wolfpack formation. Target the edges of their fleet. Hit and fade." Across the battlefield, human ships broke into small groups. Each group consisted of 3 to 5 vessels that moved together in tight coordination. They darted toward the outer edges of the Council formation, fired their weapons, and then retreated before the enemy could concentrate fire on them. It was a tactic the Council had never encountered. Their doctrine was based on big fleet battles, where 2 formations crashed into each other and traded blows until one side broke. The humans were fighting more like a pack of wolves hunting a herd, striking weak points and wearing down the enemy. "Admiral, "We are taking losses on our flanks," Zethkor's tactical officer reported. "The Endeavor has been destroyed. The Stalwart and the Brilliant are heavily damaged." "How many human ships have we destroyed?" Zethkor asked. "2 confirmed kills. 3 more are damaged." 2. They had destroyed only 2 human ships while losing dozens of their own. The numbers did not make sense. What Zethkor did not understand was that the Council was not just fighting human ships. They were fighting human doctrine, human training, and human innovation. Every Council captain had been taught the same tactics at the same academies. They fought by the same rules, used the same strategies. It made their fleet predictable. Human captains, by contrast, had been given broad mission objectives and told to achieve them however they thought best. Each ship fought differently. Each captain used unique tactics. The Council could not predict what any individual human ship would do because the humans themselves were still deciding, based on the changing situation. And then there were the drones. Michelle gave the order she had been waiting to use. "Launch drone fighters!" From the Valiant and every other human ship, small craft began deploying. They were unmanned, controlled by artificial intelligence that could process information and make decisions faster than any biological pilot. Each drone was equipped with weapons, shields, and an adaptive learning program that updated its tactics in real time. The Council had experimented with drone technology decades ago and abandoned it. Their AIs were not sophisticated enough to handle complex combat without constant oversight. Human AIs were different. Earth's computer scientists had made breakthroughs the Council never achieved, creating programs that could truly think and adapt. 300 drones swarmed into the Council fleet. They moved in patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully coordinated by networked intelligence. They targeted shield generators, weapon emplacements, and engine systems. When the Council ships tried to shoot them down, they learned from each attempt and adjusted their evasion patterns. "We cannot hit them," a Council gunner reported to his captain. "They are too fast, too unpredictable." "Keep firing," the captain ordered. But even as he spoke, a drone slipped through his defenses and fired a missile directly into his ship's main reactor. The explosion tore the vessel apart from the inside. Admiral Zethkor realized he was losing, not just losing ships, but losing the battle entirely. His fleet had the numbers, the firepower, the experience, but none of it mattered against an enemy that fought in ways he could not counter. "All ships fall back," he ordered. "Retreat to the rally point." The Council fleet began to withdraw, trying to escape the Theta Corridor. But the retreat was chaotic. Ships collided with each other as captains panicked. Some vessels were too damaged to keep up and were left behind. The organized formation that had entered the corridor became a scattered mob fleeing for survival. Michelle watched them go. Her tactical officer looked at her expectantly. "Captain, should we pursue? We can destroy more of them." For a long moment, Michelle considered it. She could order her fleet to chase the retreating Council ships. She could destroy them all, or at least most of them. It would be a crushing victory that would shock the galaxy. But she remembered her orders. General Stone had been clear. This was not about conquest. This was not about revenge. This was about sending a message. "Negative," Michelle said. "Hold position. Let them run." "Ma'am, we have made our point. We showed them they cannot defeat us. Now we show them we are not bloodthirsty. We let the survivors carry word of what happened here." Kevin looked puzzled, but he followed orders. The human fleet held its position as the Council ships fled. Of the 800 vessels that had entered the Theta Corridor, fewer than 400 escaped. The rest were destroyed or captured. Michelle opened a channel to Earth Defense Command. "General Stone, this is Captain Grant. Mission accomplished. Enemy fleet has retreated. We are holding position." Eric Stone's voice came back calm and steady. "Confirmed, Captain. Well done. Casualty report? We lost 5 ships. 12 more are damaged but can be repaired. Total casualties are 317 personnel. The council chamber was in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate escalation, others called for investigation. A few sat in stunned silence, trying to process what had happened. High Chancellor Voth stood at the center podium, his insectoid form rigid with tension. He had called this emergency session within hours of receiving General Stone's message. Now he struggled to maintain order. "Silence," he commanded, his voice amplified through the chamber. "We will have order." Slowly, the shouting died down. Species glared at each other with suspicion and anger. The unity that had existed just days ago was fracturing. Ambassador Krelnax pushed to the front. His scales had darkened to deep purple, a sign of rage in his species. "We were betrayed. Someone gave the humans intelligence about our fleet movements. Someone warned them we were coming. Or they simply prepared better than we expected," Voth replied. "Impossible. No species could build that many ships in secret. No species could develop that technology without us knowing. They had help. Inside help." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Krelnax was voicing what many were thinking. The alternative, that humanity had simply outsmarted them, was too painful to accept. Daniel Carter chose that moment to enter the chamber. He walked calmly to the human platform, ignoring the hostile stares directed at him. Commander Lisa Martin followed, her expression neutral but alert. "You dare show your face here?" Krelnax hissed. "After what you have done?" "After what we have done," Daniel asked calmly. "We defended ourselves against your attack." "That is what we have done. You slaughtered 400 ships. We destroyed military vessels that were actively trying to kill us, and we let twice that many escape. If we wanted slaughter, Ambassador, none of your fleet would have survived." The truth of that statement hung in the air. Everyone in the chamber knew it was accurate. The humans could have annihilated the entire council fleet. They had chosen not to. "I did not come here to debate the battle," Daniel continued. "I came to present evidence that explains why Earth prepared as we did." He activated a holographic display. Images began appearing throughout the chamber. Council members leaned forward, curious despite their anger. "For the past 20 years, we have been gathering intelligence on council activities," Daniel said, "not because we are aggressive, but because we learned early that the council does not always operate in good faith." The first image showed a classified council document. It detailed a plan to divide human territory among 3 major council species once Earth was brought under full control. "This document is 18 months old," Daniel said. "It outlines exactly how our worlds would be distributed, which species would control which colonies, how our resources would be exploited. It was written before any human supposedly violated any treaty." Shocked voices filled the chamber. Several species turned to look at Krelnax and his allies. "Lies," Krelnax said. "Fabrications." "The authentication codes are embedded in the file," Daniel replied. "Your own cryptographic signatures. We can verify them right now if you wish." Ambassador Lin Zhao stepped forward from another platform. She represented Earth's interests with the Verdani Collective, a group of smaller council species. "I have evidence as well," she said quietly. "Evidence of what certain council members promised my clients if they supported the war against Earth." More documents appeared. Messages between Krelnax and other major species discussing how smaller species would be rewarded for their loyalty. Promises of territory, technology, and influence, but also threats of what would happen if they did not cooperate. The Verdani were told they would receive mining rights to human asteroid fields, Lin said. The Korath were promised access to Earth's biological samples. The Silith were offered 3 of our colony worlds. All of this before Earth supposedly did anything to justify military action. High Chancellor Voth read the documents. his compound eyes moving rapidly across the text. His mandibles clicked in what his species expressed as distress. This cannot be true. These decisions were never brought before the full council. Exactly, Daniel said, because this was never about council unity. This was about a few powerful species using the council as a tool for conquest. You were manipulated, Chancellor. Most of the species in this chamber were manipulated. Dr. Amy Sullivan, Earth's xenobiologist and cultural liaison, added her voice. We have studied council history extensively. Over the past 200 years, 37 species have joined the council. Of those 37, only 6 retain meaningful independence. The rest have been gradually absorbed into the territories and control of older, more powerful members. She displayed a chart showing the pattern. Each new species started with promises of protection and cooperation. Within a generation, they lost their autonomy. Their governments became advisory at best. Their resources were managed by council administrators. Their military forces were integrated into council fleets and scattered across the galaxy, unable to defend their own worlds. This is the pattern we saw when we joined, Amy continued. This is why we prepared. Not because we wanted war, but because we wanted to avoid becoming the 38th species to lose their freedom. The chamber erupted again. Smaller species began shouting questions at the larger ones. Had they been planning the same fate for everyone? Were the documents real? How long had this been going on? Krelnax tried to speak over the chaos. This is a human trick. They are trying to divide us. No, a new voice said. It was Ambassador Trell of the Verdani Collective. The small bird-like species had always been quiet in council sessions. Now he spoke with unexpected strength. The humans are not dividing us. You already did that. You thought we were too small, too weak to matter. You thought you could make promises and threats without consequence. You were wrong. Trell looked at Daniel. The Verdani Collective has been in secret communication with Earth for 7 years. We have shared intelligence. We have coordinated our positions in council votes. We have done this because Earth treated us as equals. They asked for our help. They did not demand it. They offered fair trade. They did not exploit us. Traitor, Krelnax snarled. No, Trell replied. I am loyal to my people. That means I ally with those who respect us, not those who use us. More voices joined in. The Korath representative stood. We also have been working with Earth. We were told it was for our own protection, but the humans never asked us to compromise our values or surrender our independence. Then the Silith, then the Menthari, then species after species, 42 in total, stood and acknowledged their secret cooperation with humanity. High Chancellor Voth looked around the chamber in growing horror. Nearly half the council had been working with Earth all along. The vote to declare war had been based on false unity. Many of those who voted yes had done so out of fear or ignorance, not genuine support. You infiltrated the council, Voth said to Daniel. We made friends, Daniel corrected. There is a difference. We did not threaten anyone. We did not conquer anyone. We simply offered an alternative to the system you created. A system where small species have rights, where cooperation is voluntary, where power does not automatically mean dominance. Krelnax's scales were now almost black with fury. You think you can destroy the council? You think you can replace thousands of years of civilization with your primitive ideas? I think the council destroyed itself, Daniel said. You built a system that works through intimidation and control. Then you encountered a species that refused to be intimidated or controlled. And rather than adapt, rather than consider that maybe your system was flawed, you chose war. That was your mistake, not ours. He looked around the chamber. Earth does not want to destroy the council. We want to reform it. We want a galactic community that actually serves all species, not just the powerful ones. We want equality, not hierarchy. We want cooperation, not submission. And if we refuse? Voth asked quietly. Then we continue as we have been, Daniel said. We defend ourselves. We build alliances with species that share our values. We trade with those who treat us fairly. We avoid those who do not. The galaxy is large enough for both systems to exist, but I think, Chancellor, that over time, species will choose freedom over control. They will choose the system that serves them rather than the one that rules them. Voth was silent. Around the chamber, the council members were silent as well. They were facing a reality they had never considered, that the system they had built, the system that had brought order to the galaxy for so long, was not as strong as they believed, that a single species, properly prepared and properly motivated, could challenge it, that their own members had been quietly rebelling for years. The neutral station hung in space between Council territory and human space, built specifically for the peace negotiations. It was a massive structure, large enough to house delegations from over 100 species. Daniel Carter stood at one of the observation windows, watching ships arrive. Council vessels on one side, human ships on the other, and dozens of neutral species scattered between. 3 months had passed since the ceasefire. 3 months of careful diplomacy, heated arguments, and slow progress towards something that might actually work. High Chancellor Voth joined him at the window. The insectoid moved more slowly now, his age showing in ways it had not before. The stress of the past months had taken its toll. "Do you think we can actually do this?" Voth asked. "Create something new from the ruins of the old?" "I do not know," Daniel said honestly, "but I think we have to try. The alternative is worse." Voth's mandibles clicked in what Daniel had learned was agreement. "Krelnax and his allies will not stop. They are planning something. My intelligence people have confirmed it." "I know. Ours have too." "And you are not concerned?" Daniel smiled slightly. "I am always concerned, but I am also prepared. That seems to be humanity's approach to most things." Before Voth could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Daniel's communication device activated. It was Commander Lisa Martin's voice, urgent and clear. "Sir, we have a situation. A fleet of Council hardliners just emerged from faster-than-light travel near New Portland. They are ignoring all communications. Estimated time to firing range, 20 minutes. New Portland was one of Earth's colony worlds, home to 3 million people. It was also far from any major human military base. The hardliners had chosen their target carefully. "How many ships?" Daniel asked. 140. Heavy cruisers and battleships. Sir, our nearest fleet is 6 hours away." Daniel looked at Voth. The Chancellor's expression showed genuine shock. "This is not authorized. This is mutiny." "Authorized or not, it is happening," Daniel said. He activated his communication device. "Contact Governor Jake Henderson on New Portland. Tell him to activate planetary defenses." On New Portland, Jake Henderson was already moving. The moment the enemy fleet appeared on sensors, he knew what was coming. He had been a military officer before becoming governor. He understood tactics. "All civilians to shelters," he ordered. "Defense grid to full power. Someone get me a tactical plot." His chief of security brought up the display. 140 warships against a single colony. The colony had defenses, but they were designed to hold off pirates and raiders, not a full military assault. "Sir, we cannot stop this," the security chief said. "We need to evacuate." "There is no time to evacuate 3 million people," Jake said. "We fight." What the hardliners did not know was that New Portland, like every human colony, had been upgraded over the past 20 years. The defense satellites in orbit were not the simple platforms they appeared to be. The power plants on the surface were not just for civilian use. The communication towers had secondary functions, and every colonist who wanted one had received military training. "Activate hidden defenses," Jake ordered. "All militia units, report to your positions, and someone send a message to those ships. Tell them they have one chance to turn around." In space above New Portland, the hardliner fleet closed in. Admiral Krell Nax, brother of the disgraced council member, commanded from his flagship. He had no intention of turning around. "Target the major cities," he ordered. "We will make an example of this world. We will show the galaxy what happens to species that defy the Council." His weapons officer began locking targets. But before he could fire, something unexpected happened. The satellites orbiting New Portland changed. What had looked like simple communication and weather monitoring equipment reconfigured into weapons platforms. Not as powerful as military stations, but enough to make an attacker think twice. And then the surface installations activated. Power plants that were actually shield generators created a defensive barrier over the major population centers. The communication towers began jamming enemy targeting systems. "Return fire," Jake ordered from his command center. The colony's defenses opened up, missiles launched from hidden silos, energy weapons fired from camouflaged bunkers. The colonists had not just been living on New Portland, they had been fortifying it. Admiral Krellnax watched in frustration as his easy target turned into a real fight. How did they hide all this? His tactical officer had no answer. The truth was that humans had learned to hide military capability inside civilian infrastructure. Every human colony was not just a settlement. It was a potential fortress. But even with defenses, New Portland was still badly outnumbered. The hardliner fleet pressed its attack, overwhelming the colonial shields with concentrated fire. Buildings began to burn. People died despite the evacuation shelters. Then, 20 minutes into the battle, reinforcements arrived, not from Earth's military, from the colony itself. What the hardliners thought were civilian cargo ships and mining vessels suddenly revealed themselves as armed merchant cruisers. Colonists who had been farmers and factory workers days ago became gunners and pilots. They had been trained, they had been equipped, and they had been waiting. Jake Henderson watched his people fight with fierce pride. Miners used their ships to ram enemy vessels. Cargo haulers converted into missile platforms fired everything they had. Even civilian shuttles carried explosives, piloted by volunteers willing to sacrifice themselves to protect their homes. "Sir, we are detecting another fleet approaching," his sensor officer reported. "Multiple faster-than-light signatures. Friend or foe? Unknown. Wait, they are broadcasting identification codes. It is Captain Grant, with Battle Group 7. Jake allowed himself a small smile. Michelle Grant's fleet had been 6 hours away. Somehow she had cut that time in half. On the bridge of the EDS Valiant, Michelle had pushed her ships to their absolute limits. When she received word of the attack, she had made a decision that would have horrified any traditional admiral. She had entered faster-than-light travel through a region of unstable space that regulations said was too dangerous to navigate. Her ships had made it through. Barely. But they had made it. "All ships, battle formation," she ordered as they emerged near New Portland. "Target the enemy fleet. Show them what happens when they attack our people." The battle shifted immediately. Admiral Krellnax found himself caught between the colonial defenses and Michelle's professional military. His advantage in numbers disappeared as human weapons tore through his ships with brutal efficiency. "Retreat," he ordered. "Fall back to the rally point." But it was too late. Michelle had positioned her fleet to cut off escape routes. The merchant cruisers from the colony blocked other paths. The hardliners were trapped. "Surrender," Michelle broadcast. "Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning." Krellnax considered fighting to the death. Then he looked at his tactical display and realized he had already lost. More than half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. The rest would not last another 10 minutes. "We surrender," he said quietly. Back at the neutral station, Daniel Carter watched the battle reports with relief. New Portland had survived. The attack had been repelled, and most importantly, Earth's response had been measured. They had defended, captured the attackers, but had not pursued a revenge campaign. High Chancellor Voth watched the same reports. "Your people fought well, the colonists especially. I have never seen civilians fight like that." "They were not really civilians," Daniel said. "Not in the way you think of civilians. Every human who settles a new world knows they might have to defend it. We do not separate our population into those who fight and those who do not. We are all defenders when necessary. That is a dangerous way to live, perhaps, but it is also effective." The peace negotiations continued with new urgency. The hardliner attack had proven that some species would never accept human equality, but it had also proven that those species could not win through force. Over the next 6 months, a new structure emerged. Not the old council, but something different. The Galactic Federation, built on principles that Daniel and his allies had fought for. Equal representation regardless of species size or power. Voluntary membership with the right to leave. Mutual defense without forced integration. Trade agreements based on fairness rather than exploitation. Not every species joined immediately. Some, like Krell-Nax's people, chose to remain independent rather than accept the new rules. Others watched and waited, suspicious of anything new, but many did join, especially the smaller species that had been oppressed under the old system. They saw the Federation as a chance for real equality. General Eric Stone began a careful weapons reduction program. Earth started decommissioning its most aggressive military systems. Not all of them. Not enough to leave humanity defenseless. But enough to show good faith. Enough to prove that the massive military buildup had been for defense, not conquest. The gesture shocked many species. They had expected Earth to use its military advantage to dominate. Instead, humanity was choosing to reduce its power now that peace seemed possible. 1 year after the war declaration, Daniel stood on New Portland. The city that had been damaged in the hardliner attack had been rebuilt. Governor Jake Henderson walked with him through a park where human and alien children played together. "Strange, is it not?" Jake said. "A year ago we were preparing for war. Now we are hosting trade delegations from a dozen species." "Not so strange," Daniel replied. "We prepared for war so we would not have to fight it. The goal was always peace." "You really believe that? After everything that happened?" Daniel watched a human child teaching an alien child how to throw a ball. Simple. Innocent. The kind of scene that would have been impossible under the old council system. "I do," he said. "We built weapons because we had to. We trained soldiers because we needed to. We prepared for the worst because we understood that the galaxy was dangerous. But none of that changed what we actually wanted. We wanted to be left alone to live our lives. We wanted to explore and grow without being controlled. We wanted peace." He looked at Jake. "The strength we showed was necessary to earn respect, but the restraint we demonstrated was what earned trust. Any species can build weapons. Any species can fight. But choosing not to fight when you have the power to win, that is what makes you worthy of being an ally." Jake nodded slowly. "We were waiting." "Yes. But not for war." "No. We were waiting for the galaxy to be ready for something better. We were waiting for the chance to prove that strength and wisdom can exist together. We were waiting for peace, even if we had to prepare for war to get it." Above them, ships from 100 different species moved through New Portland's sky. Trade vessels, diplomatic shuttles, science expeditions, all peaceful, all welcome. The Galactic Council had declared war. Earth's diplomat had smiled and whispered, "We were waiting." They had been waiting for this, for a galaxy where different species could meet as equals, where strength was respected but did not mean domination, where cooperation was chosen, not forced. The war that was supposed to crush humanity had instead broken an empire and built something better in its place. Daniel Carter looked up at the stars and allowed himself to hope that this peace, earned through preparation and proven through restraint, would last. Not forever, perhaps. Nothing lasted forever. But long enough for the children playing in the park to grow up in a galaxy that was better than the one their parents had inherited. That, he thought, was worth waiting for. And most troubling of all, that the humans might be right. "I propose a ceasefire," Voth said finally. "Formal negotiations. A chance to discuss these issues without weapons." "Some of us do not want negotiations," Krelnak said. "Some of us want to see humanity crushed." "Then you are welcome to try," Daniel said coldly. "But you will try alone, because I think most of this council now understands the cost of fighting Earth. The question is whether that cost is worth paying just to maintain a system that was already broken." The vote was called. The result was not unanimous, but it was clear. A majority voted for ceasefire and negotiations. Krelnax and his closest allies walked out of the chamber. As they left, Krelnax looked back at Daniel with pure hatred. "This is not over, human." Daniel met his gaze steadily. "No, it is not. But the war you wanted is over. What comes next depends on whether you can accept that the galaxy has changed." The reptilian left without another word. Behind him, the council that had ruled the galaxy for millennia began the painful process of confronting its own failures. It was a painful number. 317 people who would not go home, but compared to what the council had lost, it was minimal. "Understood," Eric said. "Remain on station. I am sending a message to the council now." The general closed the channel and opened a new one. This one went directly to the council chambers, broadcast on all official frequencies so that every council member would receive it. "This is General Eric Stone of Earth Defense Forces. Your fleet attacked our defensive positions in the Theta Corridor. We defended ourselves. Your attack failed. You lost over 400 warships. We lost 5. This is the reality of the situation. You declared war on a species that spent 20 years preparing for this exact scenario. We have the weapons. We have the ships. We have the training. And most importantly, we have the will to defend ourselves." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But we do not want war. We never wanted war. What happened in the Theta Corridor was a skirmish, not a battle, a demonstration, not a slaughter. We could have destroyed your entire fleet. We chose not to. We let your ships retreat. We let your people live. This was mercy." Another pause. "You have a choice now. Continue this war and face complete defeat, or recognize that Earth is not the weak species you thought we were. Recognize that we have earned the right to stand as equals in the galactic community. The next move is yours. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, in council chambers and private meetings, in government halls and military headquarters, species that had thought they knew everything about humanity began to realize they knew nothing at all. The council ships moved deeper into the corridor, confident in their numerical advantage. They closed to weapons range, preparing to fire. Michelle smiled. "Now, execute Plan Gamma." The Valiant and her escorts suddenly changed position, using the gravitational eddies that the council ships were avoiding. They moved faster than the council expected, sliding through space in patterns that seemed impossible. And then the hidden weapons platforms activated. Platforms that had been placed in the Theta Corridor months ago, disguised as navigation markers and research probes. platforms that now revealed themselves as deadly weapons. The Council fleet found itself caught in a crossfire, human ships on one side and fixed defenses on the other, and both were using weapons technology the Council had never seen before. The battle for humanity's future had begun. Dark zones between stars where no one ever looked, machines began to power up. Shipyards that had been hidden as mining operations opened their bay doors. Weapons platforms disguised as communication satellites activated their targeting systems. Warships that had been waiting in cold storage for 2 decades came online, their crews already in position. The Council had declared war, and humanity was ready.